I still taste the bitterness from that night when I realized the person I'd pushed forward, trusting him with everything, had slipped the rug out from under me, snagging the promotion I thought was mine, all while wearing the grin of a friend. I never thought betrayal could wear the face of a friend. There he was at the company's annual party, his smile too familiar, the same one I'd vouched for to my boss over lunch 3 months back. Trust him, I had insisted, convinced he'd be an asset. My ambition was shelved, thinking his would complement mine. But every ambition has its edge, and his had morphed into a dagger aimed at my back. As he raised his glass for a toast to his new position, the room's lights seemed to dim around me, laughter and clinking glasses fading into faint echoes. My heart tightened painfully, the acid taste of betrayal and looming realization churned in my gut. His ascent was paved with my trust and the sacrifices I didn't realize I'd made. The view from my boss's office was like standing on top of the world. Slate-gray buildings merged into a tapestry of ambition, each window a glimpse into someone else's dream. I sat there, heart vibrating with a mix of nerves and excitement, the city's hum bleeding into the air-conditioned pristine of the room. "Hey, thanks for taking the time, really," I started, trying to anchor myself in the moment. For a second, the chair felt too large, like it could swallow me whole, but I forced a smile, feeling the sincerity ripple out. My boss leaned back, fingers steepled like a conductor pausing before an important note. "So, what's this about?" His voice, calm and expectant, gave nothing away. I could feel it then, the crux of something bigger than myself unfolding like a thread gently tugged loose. "It's about my friend, Simon. You met him at that charity event. He's brilliant, genuinely. Top of his class, hardworking, and he's struggling to find a place that appreciates his talents." My eyes stared the skyline beyond the glass to keep me steady. He nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "And you think we're the right fit?" The warmth of my conviction burned in my throat. "Absolutely. His ideas could really push us forward. It's not just that he's smart. He's got this way of seeing things that'll make you rethink everything." I let the words hang in the air, hoping they carried the weight I felt. The boss studied me, his gaze like a gentle probing detective, layers being peeled back. "There's something to say for personal recommendations. If you think he's as good as you say." I leaned forward. "I know it. I wouldn't suggest this if I wasn't sure." And there it was, my card laid on the table, my reputation interlaced with his future in a strange, hopeful dance. The boss sighed, a sound that carried years of weight and a moment's lightness. "You've been with us a while. I trust your judgment." A laugh almost broke free, unexpected relief. "Thank you. Seriously, thank you." In that bubble of trust and naive glory, everything seemed possible. I left the office floating, riding that high down the elevator, past anonymous faces bathed in artificial light. The rhythm of our steps fell into sync as I imagined Simon walking through those halls, belonging, finally building something here, with me. The streets buzzed with life beneath my feet as my mind spun with plans, possibilities. I believed I was doing the right thing, watching my friend blend seamlessly into what I'd thought would be my world to share. But in the cavernous quiet that followed, an echo I'd yet to notice waited, the first dark note of something fractured beginning to resonate. The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly, its hands moving with a quiet determination that seemed to mock my growing unease. It was well past the hour when the office usually emptied out, leaving a hush that settled over the rows of cubicles like a heavy fog. Just me and him, sitting across the cluttered table strewn with papers and flickering laptop screens. The hum of the overhead lights thrummed in synchronization with the dull ache in my temples. He leaned back in his chair, the creak of the plastic echoing in the near silence. His eyes fixed on the screen, turned to me, and a smile slid across his face. "So, tell me again about the parameters you're using for the new algorithm?" His voice was just casual enough to pass for genuine curiosity, but there was an edge, something almost sharp in the way the words hung in the air. I shifted in my seat, feeling the fabric of my chair cling uncomfortably against my back. Why the sudden interest? I attempted a laugh, hoping it sounded more natural than it felt. Every instinct within me churned, warning me of something just beyond the horizon. He shrugged, a movement so slight it was almost imperceptible. "Just impressed, that's all. I mean, look at you, making all this happen." He gestured broadly, his smile deepening, thinning at the corners. Yet, the edges of his words were blunter now, probing, as if they could peel away the layers I'd meticulously built around my work. There was a time his interest would have thrilled me, a genuine delight in sharing successes and failures. But what used to be camaraderie now seemed tinged with a predatory gleam. I tried to brush off the feeling, focusing instead on the numbers swimming in front of me. Logic and order, they made sense even when emotions clouded my vision. "So, are you changing the core structure?" Or is it more about optimization? His voice cut through the haze of my thoughts. The question was innocent enough, yet the way his eyes glinted beneath the overhead light made me pause. I swallowed, my throat tight. A bit of both, I offered cautiously. His nod was slow, deliberate, as if he were absorbing each word, dissecting it before savoring its taste. When did his curiosity about my project turn into this? I thought silently, watching him, dissecting each layer of my work under the guise of camaraderie. The familiar rhythms of our interaction had shifted into something unfamiliar, something that left me braced against the unexpected. Outside, the sky had sunk into a deep, ink-black sea, the city lights glistening like scattered jewels. Inside, the air seemed colder, despite the warmth of the fluorescent lights. I looked at him, a friend, a partner, yet tonight, he was something else, a mirror reflecting back an ambition that stirred just beneath the surface of his skin. And in that moment, sitting there with the glow of the screens illuminating the space between us, I realized what had once been simple was now entangled in the complex web of competition. The boardroom felt like a vacuum, the air siphoning the heat off my skin bit by bit, leaving a layer of cold tension beneath. I watched him, my friend, standing at the end of the long table, the screen behind him buzzing with projections and possibilities that were all too familiar. I pressed my lips into a thin line, wondering if anyone else could hear my heart thumping like a distant war drum, an approaching storm nobody else seemed to notice. His voice sliced through the stuffy silence, smooth and assured. We believe this approach could revolutionize the way we handle client portfolios. He paused for effect, a theatrical moment drawing every eye toward him like moths to a flame. Except mine. Mine were locked on the carpet patterns, weaving intricate designs as I mentally rippled with disbelief. I felt like I was sinking into the chair, every word he spoke pulling me down further into betrayal. My fingers curled around the armrests, knuckles paling as if they were silently screaming the shock I couldn't voice. "What are you doing?" echoed inside my head, the question spinning like a broken record. He was not just presenting an idea, he was presenting my idea, the one we had whispered about over beers when the deadline lights flickered low and the office hushed to shadows. The words hung in the air like a noxious cloud. My idea, my dreams, regurgitated with a sly smile that made my skin crawl. The room swayed with nods, pins scribbling their approval in fluid strokes while my thoughts tripped over themselves in chaotic spirals. When he finished, the scattered applause within the room scratched against my ears, each clapping hand feeling like an accusation, a reminder of my silence. I forced myself to breathe, each inhale a betrayal of my composure. As the meeting continued, polite discussions drowning the outrage I couldn't manifest, I mustered a smile that strained the muscles of my face more than any workout ever could. I caught his eye, his glance fleeting over mine and then snapping back to the papers in his hand. There was no sign of the friend I thought I knew. His indifference was a sharp knife against the soft cloth of our history, cutting away at the pretense with an efficiency that shocked me more than the betrayal itself. As the meeting adjourned, chairs scraped back, laughter mingling with the shuffle of footsteps. I stayed seated, my own limbs weighted by indecision. I felt the room empty around me, a sudden cavernous silence descending, amplifying the thunderous realization in my mind that this was no accident, no misunderstanding. This was war. I gathered my notes, my fingers moving deliberately slow, as if careful not to disturb the fragile peace between the part of me that wanted to confront him and the part signaling retreat. Either way, this was the crack, the moment friendship shattered into competition, clear and undeniable. The fluorescent lights buzzed almost imperceptibly above, casting a stark, sterile wash over the break room. It was lunchtime, but neither of us was hungry. I felt my pulse quicken as she stormed in and slammed her lunch bag onto the table with a force that seemed to reverberate through the hollow space. The air felt thick with the tension that had been simmering for too long, finally ready to boil over. Her eyes, usually warm and full of good-natured mischief, were dark and unyielding. "I can't do this anymore," she began, her voice a blunt instrument of emotion. "Not with you pretending like none of it happened." I felt my throat constrict, the words stuck somewhere deep and wounded. "Paula, it's not that simple," I started, hoping to somehow weave sense into the chaos that had enveloped our relationship like a poisonous fog. "Not that simple?" she interrupted, laughing in a way that felt more like a slap. How quickly the laughter turned to spite, words barbed with betrayal slicing through the thin barrier of camaraderie we'd painfully maintained. I glanced down at my hands, fingers intertwined so tightly they turned white, despair creeping along my edges. She leaned in closer, eyes boring into mine. "You knew what it meant when you let him go ahead, right?" she demanded, her voice barely more than a whisper, trembling with something both fragile and fierce. What did you expect me to do? I shot back, frustration finally finding its way past my defenses. I had to think on my feet, and you chose to save your own skin, she cut in, her voice rising. I thought we were friends before anything else. The silence that followed her words was deafening. Outside, people walked by, oblivious to the battlefield just beyond a flimsy door. My heart pounded in my ears, each beat a countdown toward an ending neither of us could avoid. We were, I confirmed softly, each word like broken glass sliding out. And that's why it hurts, why it's hard to find a way back. Paula shook her head slowly, bitter disappointment etched into every line of her face. Maybe we can't, she said, words heavy with resignation. Every atom in me wanted to reach out, to erase this moment, rewind us to simpler days. But the distance was already a chasm I didn't know if I had the courage or strength to cross. Is this how it's going to be? I asked, my voice barely holding together. There was a fragility in the air, an understanding that this could be the last time we stood facing one another like this. Her only response was a weighted silence, loaded with unsaid truths and withheld forgiveness. We held each other's gaze for what felt like an eternity before she turned away, walking out, leaving me there amidst the cold leftovers of what we once had. The glow of the monitor felt unforgiving, illuminating the stark reality. I had been blind, and now I must open my eyes wide to the truth. My fingers hovered motionless over the keyboard, shadows of hesitation casting long lines across the cold, white keys. I sat, slumped in the silent cocoon of my small office, the air thick with the remnants of heated words and broken trust. Every time I blinked, the echo of her voice replayed in my mind, punctuated by the memory of her eyes, once full of light and mischief, now just windows to the lie she had been living. My heart twisted again, the same familiar knot tightening in my chest, reminding me of everything we'd had and what I never saw. Stupid, I muttered, the word barely escaping my lips, harsh even to my ears. How could I have missed it? The clandestine texts, her sudden explanations for coming home late, the hollow laughter that now rang false. Betrayal had a way of changing everything, colors dulled, sounds muffled, even the familiar shadows in this room felt foreign. The buzzing silence of the office threatened to crush me. My gaze drifted to the framed photo at the edge of the desk. Our smiles captured in another time, carefree, tender, ignorant to the fissures growing beneath. I reached for it, my hand trembling as the truth seeped deeper into my bones, spreading like ink through water. Admitting I had been fooled was like swallowing glass. Could I ever look at her in the same way again? Could I trust the warmth of those memories, knowing they were smeared with deceit? My mind waged war against itself, each thought sharper than the last, slicing through the fragile threads of what I once believed. A hollow laugh escaped me, bitterness mixed with disbelief. I had always prided myself on being perceptive, on reading people like open books. But with her, every page had been a mirror reflecting the facade I had naively accepted as truth. The irony was savage. With a deep breath, I leaned back in the chair, letting my eyes close briefly against the harsh light. The emptiness hung like a weight I wasn't ready to relinquish yet, but somewhere beneath the exhaustion, a small ember of determination flickered. I couldn't let this define me. Not yet, at least. Slowly, I opened my eyes. The room remained unchanged, unforgiving in its reflection of isolation. But the faint spark inside me began to spread warmth through the cold doubt. I would confront this new reality, one step at a time. Rebuilding the remnants of trust, no matter how daunting, had to be possible. For now, I sat, absorbing the quiet, letting the promise of resolution steady me. The monitor's glow didn't seem quite as intense. Tomorrow might shed more light on the path forward, a path I would now tread with eyes wide open. The door to his office was ajar, inviting an unwelcome confrontation. The chill from the air conditioner mixed with a dread that coiled tightly in my stomach, each step across the carpeted floor a reminder of how unsolvable this moment felt. As I entered, he glanced up from the papers spread before him, that particular look in his eyes that said he had already made up his mind. "Close the door, will you?" he said, his voice carrying a deceptive air of calm. I pushed it shut, the click echoing louder than it should have in the silence that fell between us. I sat down, the leather chair squeaking under the pressure of so much tension. It felt cramped here, like there wasn't enough air. "So," he began, eyes fixing on mine, "you know why you're here." I nodded, unable to say much else, really. The words tangled somewhere between my throat and brain. Even if they could escape, I doubted they would form a defense. He leaned back, the leather protesting. "Let's talk about the recent dynamics on the team." Dynamics felt like such a sanitized word for what had happened. A betrayal could look so innocuous in corporate speak. I wanted to point out the disparities, the shifting alliances, The new vacancies suddenly filled with faces I used to call friends. But I stayed quiet, focusing on the slight hum of the air conditioner, a monotonous drone that filled the spaces where words wouldn't come. Your friend's promotion. He paused deliberately here, letting it hang between us like a delicate balance. It stirred things up. We all have to adjust. Adjust. Like it was just another task on the list. I could see the way his eyes pierced through the facade of professionalism I tried to maintain. Disappointment, a paint stroke of judgment laced fine lines around his gaze. His silence was deafening. I need you to understand where we stand, he continued softly, almost gentle. How we move forward depends on outcomes at the personal level too. His words wrapped around the stillness, each syllable prying open insecurities I thought I had under control. Outside this room, she wore a badge of success that also bore the weight of what she had done. Inside, I shrank under the scrutiny of my own lack of foresight. I nodded, swallowing the lump that felt sour against the back of my throat. I understand. He studied me, a long, silent moment, as though searching for something I wasn't prepared to offer or even knew I possessed. Then he nodded, a dismissal cloaked in finality. Think about it, all right? Out in the hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzed above. I stood there for a second, grappling with the bruise of failure, the indelible hurt from a friend's climb. Even the air outside his door felt biased, steeped in unspoken implications, leaving my resolve in ashes, ready, somehow, to face the world anew. The lights dimmed slightly, casting a soft glow over the podium as the CEO took the stage, his voice smooth and confident, echoing through the sleek, modern conference room. I stood at the back, arms crossed, a statue in this theater of my own undoing. Around me, colleagues shifted in their seats, eyes focused ahead, the excitement palpable. Yet, for me, the air was thick, like I was breathing underwater, weighed down by the murky depths of betrayal. Today, we're celebrating excellence, the CEO announced, his words dripping with the promise of recognition. I watched my friend, no longer a confidant but a rival, rise from his chair. His face betrayed a mix of humility and triumph. Everyone was clapping. The sharp noise pierced the air, but inside my mind, there was silence, an eerie calm overwhelming the chaos. I tried to swallow the hard lump in my throat, the bitter truth that stood tall and immovable. This promotion had been my dream, my late-night labor, etched out in hours of dedication. The very air felt hostile, mocking my resolve as I watched the spotlight shift onto him. Applause rang out like thunder, I thought, but I was deaf to its clamor. My heart laid bare and raw amidst the celebration of my undoing. I should have been the one receiving those praises, those acknowledgments. Instead, here I was, the outsider spectating a story that should have been mine. I stayed glued to the wall, feeling invisible yet painfully exposed. Each congratulatory handshake, each admiring glance they threw his way cut through me like 1,000 tiny daggers. I tried to find solace, a way to feel relieved, a way to convince myself that perhaps this path, paved with deceit, wasn't meant for me. Yet, that sweetness was absent, replaced only by bitterness. Memories of late-night talks, where we had whispered about ambitions and fears, flooded back. We had been allies then, but somewhere, the lines had blurred, and aspirations turned to rivalry. I wanted to hate him, but instead, all I felt was a hollow echo within my chest, a warning bell reminding me of my isolation. As he spoke, grandeur was woven into every word, yet all I could see was a tapestry of lies and broken promises. And then he glanced my way, just for a second, our eyes locking across the room. There was something there, regret, apology, or perhaps triumph. The moment slipped past, but its weight lingered. I felt the sting of tears pressing uncomfortably at the corners of my eyes and took a deep breath to steady myself. This wasn't the end. It couldn't be. But standing there, amidst the sea of claps and cheers, all I could think of was finding my way back to shore, away from the wreckage of this shattered dream. The park unfolded before me, an expanse of green solitude where silence spoke louder than any words I'd heard recently. I sank onto a weathered bench that would cool beneath me and let the breeze play over the frayed nerves and jagged edges of my exhausted mind. The world moved around me, parents with their children, couples walking hand in hand, a panorama of small, unscarred happiness. Each leaf seemed to pulse with life, yet all I could feel was this aching disconnect, like I was walking through molasses. It was a struggle I wore beneath my skin, just beneath the surface, raw and blistered, incubating anger and defeat. The wind whispered through the trees, and for a moment, I envied their uncomplicated existence. They stood, swaying under the weight of their branches yet never breaking, rooted into the earth. Their resilience mocked my own fragile state, and that stung more than it should have. I pulled my jacket closer around me, trying to shield myself from an invisible chill that refused to let go. My mind replayed recent events like an unwanted highlight reel, details I wished I could forget but were seared into my consciousness. Betrayal had been the headline, one I never imagined holding under my name. Love, once gentle and forgiving, had twisted into something bitter, something that burned and echoed even in this serene park. But here, in the lull between my breaths and the rustle of the trees, a pointed truth dangled just out of reach. This space, untouched by the betrayal, existed as my refuge. I could almost see my feet on a new path if I chose to look that way, beyond the grief, beyond the pain. My chest tightened, yet somewhere deep, beneath the tumult, was a tiny flicker of hope. Questioning, taunting, but alive. The air I drew in was at once clearer, unencumbered by the ghosts of what had gone wrong. Here and now was the first moment I'd sensed an inkling of acceptance tangling with my reality. Acceptance that the narrative was mine to reclaim, like these paths that wound through the park, forking and splitting under canopies that offered solace and shelter. I watched a squirrel dart across my path, its motion fluid and filled with purpose. How trivial I'd let my own existence become, caught up in another's betrayal. This moment, this solitary bench, was a reminder that my story hadn't ended. It had merely paused. And with another breath, deeper, I found a kind of quiet strength I didn't know I possessed. Maybe it wasn't solid ground, but it was something to stand on. I let the whispers of the wind guide me, understanding it was time to move forward, each step tentative but grounded in this newfound resolve. The cafe buzzes softly with the murmur of people woven into an elaborate tapestry of clinking cups and swirling spoons. My eyes fall on the group at the corner table, familiar faces fractured by time, yet undeniably warm. Each of them carries some echo of the past, and I hesitate at the doorway, the anticipation clinging to me like a second skin. "Hey, stranger." Jack's voice rings out, cutting across the room, startling me into movement. I weave through the tables, feeling exposed yet increasingly buoyant as I near them. Jack stands up, enveloping me in a bear hug that cracks open something sealed tight within me. His genuine grin beams with a kind of acceptance I hadn't felt in ages, and a warmth spreads through my chest, unfreezing places I hadn't realized were numb. "Long time," I managed to say, my voice almost drowned out by the thundering in my chest. The others chime in, a symphony of familiar voices welcoming me back to shared memories. Maya, always the perceptive one, pats the seat next to her, a silent invitation to slip back into this neglected part of my life. "We were starting to think you'd forgotten about us." I laugh, though it's tinged with an edge of guilt. "I guess I did. For a while." Her knowing eyes meet mine, reflecting a shared understanding. We've all had our tangles with life, but today isn't about those painful knots. It's about untangling them. "Work keeping you busy?" Ben asks, his brow arched, the subtext understood by all. Work hadn't just kept me busy, it had swallowed me whole. My betrayal of these friendships had been unintentional, but self-imposed isolation carried its own heavy guilt. "Yeah," I say, nodding. "But it's more manageable now. I'm trying to, find a balance." Jack snorts. "Balance? What's that?" We all chuckle, the sound honest, a balm that smooths the jagged edges within us. Their laughter means something. It reaches into the hollow carvings that loneliness had etched across my spirit. In the comfort of their company, time suspends itself, allowing me the grace to breathe deeply again. With every story exchanged, every shared memory unearthed, the invisible weight on my shoulders lightens. And as I look around at each face, I realize how much I need this, to rebuild, to mend, to be part of something I thought I'd lost. When did we get so old? Maya teases, tossing a sugar packet at Ben, who dodges it with exaggerated grace. "Speak for yourself," Ben counters, casting a smug glance around, eyes twinkling with mischief. There's a heartbeat of silence, the kind that is filled with an unspoken yet potent promise. Here, amid these friends, hope blooms not from grand gestures but from simple presence, a ready shoulder, a companionable silence, a shared laugh. I sit back, soaking it all in, the past 2 years slipping away into the comforting chatter. And in that circle of familiar faces, I find what has been missing: solace, a reminder that even after betrayal, there are still bonds strong enough to withstand the darkest of times, maybe even restart anew.